They say silence is golden, but in my line of work, high-stakes corporate mergers, silence is usually just the sound of a bomb ticking down before it obliterates your career. I was sitting in the aquarium, our glass-walled conference room, that smelled of dry erase markers and fear, looking at a spreadsheet that contained the gross domestic product of a small country. This was the culmination of 6 months of my life. It meant missed birthdays, cold takeout eaten over a glowing laptop screen at 2 in the morning, and endless negotiating with a German logistics firm whose idea of a compromise was letting you keep your dignity, but taking your soul. This $3 billion merger was my baby. I had birthed it, nursed it, and was about to send it off to college. I was the merger strategy coordinator, a title that sounds impressive, but essentially means professional janitor for executive egos. I adjusted my glasses, double-checking the projections on slide 42, knowing that one decimal point in the wrong place could cost us 8 figures. In reality, corporate life is mostly fluorescent lights and trying not to scream when a man who makes 10 times your salary asks how to convert a document. I am Adrian Campbell, 48 years old, and I have spent 12 years at Summit Group building a reputation for getting things done. I pride myself on my voice. It is the voice of a man who knows where the bodies are buried because he dug the holes. The door to the aquarium swung open, and the air pressure in the room seemed to drop. Richard Bennett, our chief executive officer, walked in. Richard is the kind of guy who thinks synergy is a verb and wears loafers that cost more than my first car. But he was not alone. Trailing behind him, clicking loudly on the hardwood floor in designer shoes, was Tristan Albright. Tristan was 25 years old, the son of Donald Albright, one of our senior vice presidents. Tristan had a degree in art history from a university that accepts people based on the donation wing of their library, and his professional profile listed his skills as social media evangelist and corporate vibe curator. He looked like he had just stepped out of a filtered social media story, perfect hair, teeth so white they were a traffic hazard, and an outfit that screamed he was here to disrupt, mostly because it violated the corporate dress code in 3 different ways. "Adrian, good, you are early," Richard said, flashing a shark-like smile. He did not sit down. That was a bad sign. It meant he was about to drop a bomb and run. "I am always early, Richard. The Germans are expecting the preliminary diligence report by noon Eastern Standard Time." "I am just finalizing the risk assessment on their Asian supply chain," I said, keeping my voice steady. Right. The boring stuff," Richard waved a hand dismissively. "Look, Adrian, we have been thinking, this merger, it is big. It is international. It needs a face. A youthful, dynamic energy to show the market we are not just a legacy firm." My stomach turned over. It felt like I had swallowed a handful of ice cubes. "I was not aware we were rebranding, Richard. I thought we were acquiring a logistics empire." We are, Tristan chimed in. His voice was high, breathy, the kind of voice that made you want to check if your own ears were popping. "But my father thinks we need to energize the client side. You know, make it pop." I stared at him. He was holding a violently pink iced coffee that was sweating onto the mahogany table. I had spent 3 weeks arguing about amortization schedules with a terrifying Bavarian man named Dieter Klaus, and Tristan wanted to make it pop. "So," Richard continued, avoiding my gaze by studying a smudge on the glass wall, "we are bringing Tristan on as co-lead for the final phase. He will handle the client-facing interactions, the dinners, the vibe checks. You will stay on the back end, obviously handling the paperwork. Paperwork. He called the structural integrity of a $3 billion deal paperwork. "Richard," I said, carefully placing my pen down. It was a heavy metal pen. "With all due respect, the lead investor is Reginald Vance. He is 70 years old, notoriously reclusive, and hates vibes. He cares about numbers. He cares about competence. Bringing in someone with less experience at this stage is a massive risk." Tristan laughed. It was a tinkling, condescending sound. "Oh, Adrian, you are so intense. Reginald Vance is just a person, right? People buy people. I checked his grandniece's social media, and he totally bought her a horse last year. He has a soft side. We just need to tap into that." I looked at Richard. He was nodding, entranced by the shiny object he had brought into the room. "Tristan is right, Adrian. We need to modernize. You are great at the nuts and bolts, but Tristan, he is the polish. He is the co-lead starting today. Get him up to speed on the deck before the preliminary call tomorrow. Co-lead, I repeated. The word tasted like ash. Yes, and Adrian. Richard paused at the door, one hand on the handle, ready to escape the atmosphere of suppressed rage. Let us try to be a team player. Tristan represents the future of this company. They left. The click-clack of Tristan's designer shoes echoed down the hallway. I sat there for a long time. The spreadsheet on the screen stared back at me. Columns and rows of logic, order, and truth. Outside that door, a world of nepotism and chaos was gathering to storm the gates. I looked at the cell showing projected liability. The future of the company, I whispered to the empty room. I did not scream or throw my laptop. Crying ruins your credibility. Instead, I saved the file, closed the laptop, and started to think. If they wanted Tristan to be the face of the deal, fine, I would let him be the face. But they were forgetting that faces are the first thing that gets hit when you walk into a wall, and I knew exactly where the walls were. I opened my email and saw the invite for tomorrow's online video conference. The subject line had already been changed by Tristan. It no longer read preliminary financials. It now read, "Let us get this bread. Bread money intro meeting," complete with an emoji of a loaf of bread and flying paper currency. It was sent to a conservative German industrial conglomerate and a billionaire investor who allegedly once fired a junior partner for wearing brown shoes after 6 in the evening. My hand hovered over the mouse. I could change it back. I could call Richard and explain why this was professional suicide. I could go to Tristan's office and try to explain that Reginald Vance ate vibes for breakfast and picked his teeth with the bones of socialites. But then I remembered Richard's voice. The boring stuff. Paperwork. I withdrew my hand and let the subject line stay. "Okay, Tristan," I murmured, picking up my lukewarm black coffee. "Let us get this bread." The next morning, the aquarium felt less like a conference room and more like a gladiatorial arena. We were 5 minutes out from the call. I was wearing my charcoal-structured blazer, tailored, severe, professional. Tristan was wearing a neon green cropped jacket that belonged on a music video set, not in a corporate boardroom. Okay, so Tristan was adjusting a ring light, which he had clamped onto the top of the boardroom monitor. When they log on, should I lead with a joke? Icebreakers are huge right now. Maybe something about how German sounds like angry gargling? No, too aggressive. Maybe just a classic Guten Tag, y'all? "Tristan," I said, my voice devoid of emotion, "these are representatives from Vance Capital and the Klaus Group. They do not want icebreakers. They want to know why the operating expenses in the Munich plant increased by 4% in the second quarter." Tristan rolled his eyes, checking his reflection in the darkened screen. "You worry too much, Adrian," Richard said to bring energy. "I am bringing energy." The screen flickered to life. The pixels arranged themselves into the terrifyingly high-definition faces of the Klaus team. There sat Dieter Klaus, looking like a granite statue that had recently learned to frown, and 2 of Reginald Vance's senior analysts, who looked like they were bred in a laboratory for the sole purpose of finding tax loopholes. "Good afternoon," Dieter said, his voice sounding like a heavy door closing in a mausoleum. "We are ready to proceed with the financial alignment." "Hey, everyone." Tristan waved at the camera with both hands. "I am Tristan. I am the new co-lead for the vibe of this whole thing. Can we just say how excited we are to be merging with you guys? It is going to be literally iconic." Silence, absolute, vacuum-sealed silence. On the screen, one of the analysts adjusted his glasses. Dieter did not blink. "Iconic," Dieter repeated, tasting the word like it was spoiled milk. "We are here to discuss the adjustments." "Right, the numbers stuff." Tristan laughed nervously. He looked at me, panic flaring behind his eyes for a millisecond before he plastered the smile back on. "Adrian, pull up the deck." I shared my screen. The spreadsheet appeared, clean, precise, beautiful. "Okay," Tristan said, squinting at the numbers. "So, as you can see here, the money coming in is good. We have a lot of synergistic velocity happening in the green columns." Synergistic velocity. I physically felt a blood vessel in my eye twitch. "Excuse me," the senior analyst interrupted. "What is the basis for the projected 12% reduction in overhead?" "Footnotes indicate a reliance on automated logistics, but the union contracts prohibit automation for another 3 years." Tristan froze. He looked at me. "Adrian, you want to jump in on the boring details?" I unmuted my microphone. The 12% is contingent on the expiration of the Clause 4B contracts in the Hamburg facility, which occurs in 18 months. We have factored in a bridge loan to cover the interim gap, offset by the liquidation of the redundant fleet assets. The analyst nodded. Acceptable. Tristan let out a breathy laugh. See, boring details. Adrian is great at the math stuff. He is like a human calculator, right? But let us talk big picture. What is the culture fit? I was thinking for the signing ceremony we could do a custom social media campaign. Klaus Merger Mania. Thoughts? Dieter looked like he was about to have a stroke. We do not require a social media campaign. We require competence. The air in the room turned freezing cold. Tristan flushed a deep, blotchy red. He had lost the room and he knew it. Richard was in the corner looking at his phone, refusing to make eye contact with the train wreck he had orchestrated. Tristan needed a win. He needed to reassert dominance, and like a cornered animal, he lashed out at the nearest threat. Me. He turned to me, laughing a little too loud. God, Dieter is so serious. You guys would get along great. I mean, look at you, Adrian, practically German yourself. He gestured up and down at my charcoal blazer. Do you even own a suit that isn't depressing? I mean, seriously. Do you even own a suit that doesn't make you look like you are going to a funeral for a librarian? He looked back at the screen, expecting the men to join in the banter. Nobody laughed. The silence stretched. It was thick and suffocating. On the screen, the lead analyst was staring directly at Tristan with an expression of mild anthropological horror. I felt the heat rise up my neck. It was not embarrassment. I was not embarrassed by my clothes. My clothes were bespoke wool. They were armor. I was embarrassed for him. I was embarrassed for my company. Tristan, I said softly, the suit is custom tailored and we are currently on slide 12. Whatever, Tristan scoffed, flipping his hair. Let us just move on. The slide is boring anyway. Richard finally looked up. Tristan, let us keep it focused. I am focused, he snapped, his voice cracking slightly. I am trying to build a relationship here. I looked at the camera lens. I saw the analyst make a note on a pad of paper. He did not look at the screen. He just wrote something down, underlined it twice, and then looked back up. His eyes met mine through the digital void. There was a look of a man realizing there was only one adult in the room. I leaned back in my chair. The humiliation was supposed to break me. Tristan wanted me to snap, to get defensive, to prove I was outdated. Instead, I went completely still. Do I own a suit? I thought. Oh, Tristan, you have no idea what I own. I own the data, I own the history, and as of this moment, I own the silence. I did not say another word for the rest of the call. When Tristan floundered on the foreign currency exchange rates, I drank my water. When he promised a delivery timeline that was physically impossible, I took notes. The bridge was burning, and I decided right then and there that I was not going to be the one holding the hose. In the corporate world, there is a distinct difference between quiet quitting and what I was doing. Quiet quitting is passive. It is doing the bare minimum to not get fired. What I was engaging in was strategic withdrawal. It is the act of removing the load-bearing walls of a building you designed, stepping outside, and waiting for gravity to do its job. For the next 2 weeks, the office became a theater of the absurd. Tristan, emboldened by Richard's refusal to reprimand him, turned the merger preparation into a social club recruitment week. He ordered custom cupcakes with the Vance Capital logo on them, which arrived looking like gray blobs of sugar. He scheduled brainstorming sessions that were just him reading motivational quotes from social media. I attended every meeting. I arrived 5 minutes early. I sat in the same chair, and I contributed exactly nothing beyond what was explicitly asked of me. Adrian, what do you think about this font? Tristan would ask. It is legible, I would reply. Adrian, should we invite the client to a mixology class? That is a decision for the co-lead. I stopped correcting his grammar in emails. I stopped reminding him of time zone differences. When he scheduled a call with the Tokyo team for 3 in the morning their time, I simply accepted the invitation and waited for the angry emails to roll in. Richard noticed the silence. He stopped by my desk on a Tuesday, looking harried. His tie was crooked. Adrian, you were quiet lately. Everything okay with the prep? Tristan says you are being distant. I am just letting him lead, Richard, like you asked. I am handling the back end. Right, good. He shifted his weight. He is doing great, right? A few growing pains, but the client seems engaged. They are certainly paying attention, I said. It was not a lie. Watching a car crash is a form of engagement. While Tristan was busy picking out playlist songs for the closing dinner, I was operating on a different frequency. My laptop screen was angled away from the door, and my personal email was open. I had spent 6 months building a rapport with Reginald Vance's executive assistant, a woman named Beatrice Lang. Beatrice was 60 years old, British, and terrifying. We had bonded over a shared hatred of reply-all email chains and an appreciation for forensic accounting. I sent her a message. Dear Beatrice, I hope the weather in London is tolerable. Please find attached the updated risk assessment models you requested. Note that these figures differ from the ones circulating in the official slide deck. I believe in accuracy over optimism. Best, Adrian. The reply came 3 minutes later. Dear Adrian, Mr. Vance has reviewed the attachment. He notes the discrepancy in the liquidity ratios. He asked me to convey that he values sanity in an asylum. We are looking forward to the final strategy session. He will be attending personally. He also asks if the co-lead is still insisting on the bread emoji. Regards, Beatrice. I allowed myself a microscopic smile. Sanity in an asylum. That was the validation. They knew. The investors were not stupid. People like Reginald Vance did not become billionaires by falling for vibes. They were watching the show, but they were reading my subtitles. Tristan walked by my glass wall talking loudly on his phone. I looked at the sent folder on my screen. I was not just working for the company anymore. I was working for the deal, and the deal had nothing to do with Richard or Tristan. The withdrawal was complete. I had removed myself from the blast radius. Now, all that was left was to wait for someone to light the fuse. And as it turned out, Tristan brought his own matches. The fumble happened on a Thursday, 3 days before the final session, during a meeting reviewing the synergy forecast. This is the part of the merger where you explain how 1 + 1 = 3. Tristan had taken over the spreadsheet. Okay, so I tweaked the numbers last night, he announced, projecting his laptop onto the big screen. The previous forecast was just too conservative. It looked sad, so I pumped up the cross-selling projections. I looked at the screen and felt my blood run cold. Tristan, I said, leaning forward, you doubled the earnout potential. Based on what? Based on the vibe, he said, throwing his hands up. If we believe in the product, the customers will believe. It is the law of attraction. I watched a documentary on it. The law of attraction is not an accounting principle, I said. You are promising 20% growth in a market contracting by 5%. Under Section 10B of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934 and Rule 10b-5, presenting these false statements to investors constitutes corporate fraud, violating our fiduciary duty to shareholders. Richard looked up from his phone. The word fraud usually gets a chief executive officer's attention. Whoa, Adrian, that is a heavy word. Tristan, explain your thinking. I just think we need to show confidence, Tristan whined. Adrian is trying to sabotage the energy. He wants us to go in there and say we might make a little money. No, we are going to crush it. And if we miss the targets later, we will just pivot. That is what startups do. We are not a startup, I said. We are a publicly traded company, and if you present these numbers to Reginald Vance, he will shred you. He knows the market capitalization better than you know your horoscope. Richard. Tristan looked at his father's colleague with pleading eyes. He is doing it again. He is being a hater. Richard sighed. He looked tired, like a man who had made a bad bet and was doubling down because he was too proud to fold. Adrian, let us meet in the middle. Tristan, maybe tone it down by 5%. Adrian, stop being so rigid. We need to sell the dream. Selling a dream is fine, Richard. Selling a lie is actionable under corporate law, I said. Just fix the font, Adrian, Richard snapped. It was the first time he had raised his voice at me in 12 years. Let Tristan handle the strategy. You handle the formatting. I went silent. The room seemed to stretch and warp. Handle the formatting. Understood, I said. I went back to my desk. I opened the master file. I did not change Tristan's numbers. I left them exactly as he wanted them. The 20% growth, the magical synergy, the law of attraction economics. Then I opened a separate file containing the actual market analysis, the conservative 4% growth models, and the risk mitigation plans for the contracting market. The truth. I attached it to an email to Beatrice Lang. Please ensure Mr. Vance has this for the meeting. It contains the data that supports the boring reality. The official presentation will differ significantly. Consider this the director's cut. I hit send. My hand did not shake. I felt a strange, icy calm. They wanted me to handle the formatting? Fine. I had formatted the truth and delivered it to the only person who mattered. I looked over the partition. Tristan was high-fiving Richard in the hallway. They were celebrating their vision. Friday afternoon brought news that hit the office like a drone strike. Beatrice sent the confirmation email. Reginald Vance would be attending the strategy session in person, flying his private jet into the local airfield and taking a car to our office. Panic is a smell. It smells like dry cleaning chemicals and nervous sweat. The office reeked of it. Richard was pacing in his office, barking orders at his assistant to order better coffee and get the windows cleaned. Tristan was in a state of delusion, practicing his lines in the conference room. It was painful to watch him treat a multi-billion-dollar negotiation like an audition. "So, Reginald, can I call you Reggie? The synergy here is basically explosive," he rehearsed. I sat at my desk, listening. I was preparing. I had my real presentation ready. At 7 p.m., the office was mostly empty. Tristan had left to get a pre-game facial. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Courier is downstairs. Blue sedan. Ask for the package." I grabbed my coat and walked to the elevator. Down in the parking garage, the air was cold and damp. The blue sedan was idling in the corner. I walked over and the driver rolled down the window. "ID?" he asked. I showed him my security badge. For the investor, I confirmed. I handed him a thick manila envelope. Inside was the printed copy of the real strategy, bound in simple black plastic. "He asked for a physical copy," the driver said. "He does not trust screens. He says they lie." "He is right," I said. The window rolled up, and the sedan glided away. I stood there in the concrete silence. I had just handed company data to an outside investor. But I was saving the deal and protecting employees whose jobs would be wiped out without warning, violating the Federal Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act. I went back upstairs. Richard was leaving. "You are still here, Adrian?" "Just tidying up," I said. "Good," he said. "Tristan is nervous. Just be there for him, okay? If he stumbles, catch him, but let him shine." "I will be right there, Richard," I promised. He nodded, looking relieved. "I knew I could count on you. You are a soldier, Adrian." I watched the elevator doors close. "No, Richard," I whispered. "I am not a soldier. I am the sniper." The night before the merger meeting, Richard insisted on dinner at a dimly lit steakhouse. Tristan had declined, claiming he needed beauty sleep to be ready for Reginald Vance. Richard poured me a glass of wine. To the big day, he toasted. "To the merger," I replied. "Adrian," Richard leaned in. "I appreciate your heavy lifting for 6 months. But Tristan connects with the younger demographic. If he gets stuck, step in. Do not make him look bad." He was asking me to be the ventriloquist and Tristan the dummy. "You want me to support him," I stated. "I want you to support the company," Richard corrected. "So, can I count on you to be the safety net?" I had worked 12 years for Richard. His reward was replacing me with a vice president's son. "Of course, Richard," I smiled. "I will do exactly what is best for the merger." "I knew you were a team player." Richard relaxed. "I was the bedrock. Bedrock is walked on, but it stands firm during earthquakes." The next morning, I arrived at the office with nothing but a single slim leather folder. No laptop, no charger, no stack of binders. Tristan was already there, surrounded by a whirlwind of paper. "Adrian, where is your computer? I cannot find the slide with the bridge details." "I do not need my computer," I said calmly, taking my seat. "You have the deck. Tristan, you are the co-lead. So, drive." "Mr. Vance is in the lobby," Richard announced. Everyone looked sharp. Reginald Vance walked in. He was shorter than I expected, wearing an old but impeccably tailored suit. He did not shake hands. He sat down and placed my black plastic-bound document on the table. He looked around, his eyes scanning faces, stopping on Tristan, then Richard, and finally me. "Begin," Reginald Vance said. Tristan stood up, his hands trembling as he clicked the remote. The first slide appeared, the one with the bread emoji. Reginald Vance stared at it in silence. Tristan cleared his throat. "Hello, welcome, Mr. Vance. We are so pumped to be here. This merger is going to be a total game changer, disrupting the paradigm." Vance did not move. Tristan clicked to the next slide, the synergy forecast with the inflated numbers. "As you can see, we are projecting massive growth. The vibe between our teams is electric. We think the supply chain just needs a little lipstick to make it sexy." The silence in the room was so heavy it felt like physical pressure. Richard was staring at the table in frozen horror. Lipstick. Reginald Vance repeated. You intend to put lipstick on a shipping container supply chain? Metaphorically, Tristan squeaked. I see, Vance said, opening the black folder. Now, how does lipstick account for the 15% tariff increase on the Asian routes detailed in page 4 of the actual data? Tristan froze. The slide had no tariff data. Well, the tariffs are negotiable, Tristan whined. We feel like we can vibe check the customs officers. Vibe check the customs officers, Vance said flatly. He closed the folder. Young man, do you know what the net operating loss carry forward is for the target entity? Tristan looked at me, his eyes wide and pleading. I think my colleague Adrian has the boring details on that, Tristan said, trying to regain his cool. Adrian? I sat there and looked directly at Reginald Vance. The net operating loss carry forward is $42,500,000, I said, my voice calm and clear. However, due to the Section 382 limitation, it can only utilize approximately $3,100,000 annually. This extends the tax benefit realization period to 14 years, which impacts the net present value of the deal by roughly 8%. Tristan blinked. Richard's head snapped up. Furthermore, I continued, regarding the tariffs, the 15% increase is mitigated by the supplier contracts in Vietnam, and China negotiated 3 months ago to include a duty-sharing clause. That saves us $12 million annually, effectively neutralizing the tariff impact. And as for the lipstick, we are not rebranding the containers. We are optimizing the cubic utilization rates. We do not need them to look sexy. We need them to be full. Reginald Vance stared at me. And the earning projections? He asked. This document says 4% growth. The screen says 20%. The screen, I said, is a theoretical best-case scenario based on unverified optimism. The document in front of you is the mathematical reality based on market conditions. Tristan made a sound like a deflating balloon. Mathematics does not care about your attraction. Vance snapped, keeping his eyes on me. He turned to Richard. Richard, you have wasted my time. I do not pay billions of dollars for fresh perspectives on how to bankrupt a company. I pay for competence. He pointed a gnarled finger at Tristan. Get him out of here. He is a liability. If I see him on this deal again, I am pulling the capital. Tristan let out a sob, grabbed his bag, and ran out. Vance turned to me. I only deal with him, he said to Richard, pointing a thumb at me. Him or nothing. If he is not the sole lead, the deal is dead. 1 week later, I sat in the aquarium. Richard had announced my promotion on Monday, Vice President of Strategic Mergers, a corner office, and a significant equity bump. A courier arrived with a small heavy package. Inside was a bottle of vintage scotch and a handwritten note from Vance. Adrian, thank you for not playing games. We trust you. The deal closes Friday. Beatrice says hello. I smiled, adjusting my new blazer. Do I own a suit? I whispered to the empty office. Honey, I do not just own the suit. I own the strategy. I own the room. And now I own the deal.